your majesties, your excellencies, dear friends, today I speak to you not only as Princess of Asturias, but as one who has come to reflect deeply on what it means to be you, you individual, you sister, you citizen, you next generation. In that reflection, I have discovered a mathematics, a formula of identity, cooperation, and promise. I often think about the legacy I carry, the title that binds me, the nation I serve, the history I inherit. Each of these is a number, a constant in the equation of my life, and yet they are not fixed in isolation. They change through my actions, through the choices I make, through the way I commit myself to duty and to others. The legacy I hold is a variable that invites growth. My sister, Princess Sofia of Spain, and I share this equation. We grow together, and that growth is not simply additive, it is cumulative. When we act side by side, when we learn together, when we support one another, we raise the sum of our possibilities. We know that service given alone is good, that service given together is powerful. And then there is the future we imagine not as a distant point on a line, but as a projection of our present resolve. It is the product of our education, our effort, our values. Every hour of training, every page of study, every interaction with people who work to improve society contributes a factor. When these factors multiply, they yield outcomes of meaning, the protection of our environment, the strengthening of solidarity, the advancement of culture and science. I ask you today, in the mathematics of you, how will you define your variables? What will you add to the sum? And what will you multiply by your commitment, your time, your empathy? Because the answer lies not in numbers alone, but in how we use them, how we live them. My commitment to Spain, to its people and to its values, is not simply duty, it is privilege. I carry that with humility, I carry that with hope, and I carry it with the conviction that together sisters, citizens, generations we compute a future worthy of our promise. Thank you for joining me in this reflection, for sharing in this journey, for believing that the mathematics of you is real, is meaningful, and is transformative. Let us go forward resolved, connected, and ready. And may our sum be greater than our parts, our product richer than our hopes, and our legacy brighter for all. As I stand before you today, I am reminded of the many threads that weave together to form my identity, and in turn to shape the legacy I commit to uphold. In reflecting on who I am and on what I will become, I see variables in an equation, dynamic, evolving, meaningful. I would like to share with you how I understand identity and legacy as variables, not fixed constants, how they invite growth, challenge, and responsibility, and how they call upon each of us to engage with our lives with purpose. From the moment I accepted the responsibilities that accompany the name I bear, I recognized that identity is more than a label. It is a living expression of one's upbringing, one's heritage, one's convictions. I carry a history of my family, of my country, of every person who came before me and entrusted me with the dreams of tomorrow. That history is a term in the equation of my being, but I also recognize that identity is not immutable. It is shaped by education, by experience, by the people we meet and the challenges we face. The value of who I am today is not the same as the value I will have tomorrow. It is variable. It changes as I learn, as I serve, as I listen. And because identity is variable, legacy cannot simply be a fixed outcome. Legacy is born in the present, in the way we conduct ourselves, in the decisions we make, in the values we nurture. To me, legacy is the product of identity multiplied by responsibility multiplied by commitment. If any one of these factors is nil, the result is diminished. Therefore, if I remain true to the identity I have inherited and expand that identity through service, then the legacy becomes something richer than mere heritage. It becomes lived purpose. When I look out across the people whom I serve, When I hear your hopes and when I witness your efforts, I see that legacy is not mine alone. It belongs to all of us. The identity I bring is informed by my family and nation, yes, but it is also shaped by you. Your aspirations become inputs in the equation. When I listen to young people striving for knowledge, to communities reaching out in solidarity, to disciplines of art and science pushing their boundaries, I understand that identity includes a promise to those voices. The I becomes we and the our, and so the equation changes again. Our identity, our legacy, our responsibility. Variable identity means I cannot rest on the laurels of title or origin. I must evolve. I must be present in every moment where I represent the values entrusted to me. I must meet challenges head on, learn from mistake and success alike, and grow in courage and humility. When I step into duties, in public or private, I carry the weight of expectation, but also the light of possibility. I am not bound by what has already been done, but guided by what can still be achieved. Legacy, therefore, is not a finality. It is not a monument we build once and then admire. It is a continuous function, one that demands iteration, clarity of intent, and resilience. Every time I engage with society, every time I commit myself to education, to youth, to the environment, to culture, I add a term to the sum of our shared future. And because identity is variable, legacy too must adapt, reflecting new realities, new challenges, new hopes. I think of identity as the foundation, but also as the scaffold. It is both what anchors me and what raises me. My heritage anchors me, the values of service, of solidarity, of humility, but it is the choice to inhabit those values in each day that raises me. And so I ask of myself, and of all who look to the future, how they will define their identity. Will they see it only as inheritance, or will they accept it as invitation to learn, to change, to act? And for legacy, how will we build it, not simply by preserving the past, but by engaging the present and imagining the future? Legacy is not our trophy, it is our task. It is the responsibility we carry, the contribution we offer, the trust we honor. I am aware of all that I have inherited, the title, the duty, the hope of a nation, yet I also feel the weight of all that remains to be realized: equality in opportunity, respect for all voices, sustainable progress for our shared home. These are variables too. They fluctuate, they require recalibration, they ask for perseverance. To carry identity and to build legacy is to carry a promise to oneself, to one's country, to future generations. It is to say, I will not remain the same, I will grow, I will learn, I will listen, and when I look back, I hope to see a path of action, not simply a mark of position, but a record of meaningful contribution. I hope to see that what I did with my identity multiplied with my commitment produced a legacy that strengthened the bonds between people, raised hopes, and opened doors. In this way, identity is variable but decisive, and legacy is variable but indispensable. They are not contradictory, they are complementary. The variable nature of identity reminds us that we are never finished, never fixed. The variable nature of legacy reminds us that our work is never done, never solitary. It invites us to engage, each one in our own sphere, with purpose and integrity. As I continue on this journey, I carry this equation with me: identity, responsibility, commitment equals legacy. I carry it not as a formula alone, but as a compass. It steers me when I speak in halls that give voice to the many, when I visit communities that echo with hope, when I stand with young people who hold the future in their hands, and I carry it humbly, recognizing that the variables I add may be small, but in combination they matter. Thank you for allowing me to reflect with you today, and may each one of us recognize that our identity is not destiny, but design. May we each choose to define it, refine it, and live it, and may the legacy we build together be greater than any of us alone. As I reflect on the journey I share with my sister, I am struck by the truth that strength does not grow in solitude, it grows in partnership, it grows in the shared steps, the mutual striving, the tender support, and the collective courage. In our lives, our paths side by side collaboration and sisterhood form not simply a choice, but a foundation. Walking together with her, I have learned that our individual stories may be different, yet the conviction that guides each of us is the same: to serve, to learn, to contribute. When I look at her determination, her youthful ambition, her readiness to embrace responsibility, I feel inspired, and not as simply someone who watches, but as someone who acts alongside. We are two sisters, yes, but in our union lies something more than the sum of two parts. We represent a promise, a shared promise that one might find alone, but which blossoms when two hearts, two minds, walk toward the same horizon. In collaboration, we find that the weight of responsibility is lighter when carried together. And in sisterhood, we discover that the victories matter more when celebrated together, and the challenges become an invitation to grow rather than a burden to bear alone. There have been moments when we have looked at each other and recognized that in each one lies a source of support, a trusted confidant, a mirror of humility, a partner in purpose. When she rises, I rise; when she struggles, I stand. And in doing so, the path forward becomes not a solitary ascent, but a shared climb. Together, we witness how our roles intertwine in our public duties, in our private reflections. In the quiet hours of preparation, we see that behind the formality and the tradition lies the simple fact of two siblings aware of the same calling, rooted in the same values. And so the partnership is more than companionship, it is mutual empowerment. Each of us brings what we carry inside: curiosity, compassion, resilience, and a desire to serve. But when we merge those gifts, the result is richer, broader, more capable of meeting the expectations placed upon us. The equation becomes: her strength plus my strength plus our shared resolve equals a greater capacity to act, to connect, to represent. In the real world of service, leadership, and change, collaboration is not about dividing tasks so each does less. Rather, it is about multiplying capacity so together we do more. When she speaks about the future, and I speak alongside her about our nation, our youth, our environment, the message resonates louder because it is shared, because it is authentic, because it is born from the reality of our bond. In that bond there is vulnerability and trust, there is quiet conversation and loud conviction. There is the readiness to learn from each other, to challenge each other, to support each other in the name of something that transcends ourselves. Sisterhood teaches us that we are stronger not in spite of our differences, but because of them. I recognize her strengths in seeing what I might miss. She recognizes mine in holding steady when I waver. And so we do not duplicate each other, we complete each other. In that completion lies synergy. We are embedded in a wider story of our family, our country, our generation, and in that story, the presence of sisterhood means that one voice becomes two, two become many, and the many become a chorus. The sum is amplified, not by merely adding numbers, but by adding purpose, by synchronizing effort, by sharing vision. And so I often ask, how will the collaboration you hold manifest in your life? How will the relationships you cultivate become more than support systems, become active agents of change? I believe that the sister's journey gives a lesson not only in familial bond, but in communal aspiration. If two can stand side by side, imagine the power when countless stand beside each other, youth and elders, innovators and tradition, keepers, voices of the many joining in pursuit of the common good. Our sisterhood is a microcosm of what society can achieve when collaboration is embraced as a value, not merely a convenience. We honor the fact that public service is rarely achieved alone. The most meaningful change is rooted in collective effort, in shared vision, in co-responsibility. As I and my sister continue to prepare, to learn, to step into roles of greater visibility and greater duty, we each carry memories of small moments, a conversation, a listened to worry, a shared smile before a public engagement. These add up, they accumulate, they remind us that leadership is not detached from kinship, it is enriched by it. To know that I will not walk alone into those moments of challenge and expectation gives me confidence, not resting confidence, but confidence built on action and companionship. In collaboration and sisterhood, the sum is more than arithmetic. It becomes algebra of possibility. It is the addition of hope, responsibility, and affection. I recognize that every decision I make is influenced by her presence. Every step she takes is more deliberate knowing I walk near. And because of that knowing, both our trajectories are steadier, both our commitments deeper. The sum of our efforts is not simply doubled, it is amplified. It ripples outwards to young people who will watch us, to communities whose voices we are honored to uplift, to a future where service and solidarity may be the defining elements. We live in times where fragmentation and individualism often seem to dominate. Yet in our shared life I see an alternative, unity through respect, collaboration through equality, sisterhood through shared ambition. Our bond is not one of competition, but of cooperation. It is not one of one-upmanship, but of mutual striving. And in standing together, we show that service built on alliance, leadership grounded in fellowship, is a path worth following. And so, as I continue in this journey, stepping forward not alone but with her by my side, I commit to honoring that collaboration. I commit to making the sum of our sisterhood count, not just for ourselves, not just for our titles, but for all who believe that shared effort, shared voice, shared hearts can change the world. In the mathematics of life, we add not just our names, but our resolve. We add our hope, our service, our dedication, and we become more than the sum of our parts. Thank you for walking with us. As I look ahead to the path that stretches before us, I am filled with a sense of resolve and possibility. The horizon is not simply a distant backdrop, it is an invitation, and the future we imagine is not some far-off abstraction, it is the result of what we choose to do today. Our service, our acts of compassion, our dedication to others, all these combine, multiplied together, to shape what lies ahead. In considering the future, I recognize that it is not determined solely by the titles we hold, nor by the positions we occupy. Rather, it is shaped by how we respond to the moment in which we live. The promise of tomorrow depends on the commitments we make now. Service, in that context, becomes the multiplier. It amplifies the efforts of education, of experience, of intention. When we dedicate ourselves to something beyond ourselves, when we reach out, listen, support, we turn aspiration into action, latent potential into realized good. The notion of future and service as a kind of product is a useful one. Think of the values we hold: compassion, integrity, curiosity, humility. Think of the preparation we undertake: study, training, reflection, encountering others who walk different roads. Think of the moments when we step into our duties, publicly or privately, and respond not because others demand it, but because we understand its meaning. Multiply all these factors, and what emerges is service that matters, and a future that is worthy. In my own journey, I am learning this every day. A duty entrusted, a role accepted, a promise made, all require preparation. But preparation alone is not enough. It must be matched by willingness. It must be combined with empathy. It must be grounded in the belief that our lives are woven together with the lives of others. When I engage with young people whose voices are rising, when I listen to communities working for change, when I see individuals whose commitment transforms their environment, each of these encounters becomes a factor in the equation. Each adds value. We often speak of the future in terms of what we hope to receive. I would like to shift that conversation toward what we are ready to give. Service is not a grand gesture once in a while. It is the steady decision to act, to respond, to stand up. It is the accumulation of small actions. It is the willingness to show up. And when those small actions accumulate, they produce meaningful change. And so I ask, how will you invest your days? How will you direct your energy? Because in the calculation of future equals service preparation commitment, you are one of the variables. Your act of kindness, your readiness to learn, your willingness to serve, they matter. They shift the result. They influence the outcome. The world into which we step is complex. It offers both challenge and opportunity. There are young people who struggle for voice. There are communities seeking recognition. There is the pressing need to protect our planet. There is the task of preserving culture while embracing progress. These issues ask for more than passive acknowledgement. They ask for engagement. They ask for the product of our effort, our conscience, our hearts set toward action. I have seen how service strengthens bridges between generations, between regions, between individuals. I have realized that when one stands in solidarity with others, the distances shrink, and from that closeness grows responsibility. We are not isolated actors. We are part of a weave of hope and aspiration. Our service is meaningful precisely because it connects us to the whole, and the future we build is stronger for the ties we forge. Some may believe that preparing for service means waiting for the right moment, for the right opportunity, for the stage. I believe differently. Service begins where we are. It begins with listening. It begins with acknowledging that each person we meet, each voice overlooked, each community striving, deserves our attention. Preparation gives us tools, but service gives us context, and together they generate the product of change. In accepting the responsibility I carry, I am mindful that it is not simply about bearing a title. It is about modeling a commitment to being useful, to being present, to stepping forward. The future in that sense is not a solo journey, it is a collective venture. And so I commit myself, not just to the duties I inherit, but to the people I will serve, to the society I will represent, to the hopes I will help realize. Let us never forget that service itself is transformative. It changes the person who gives as much as the person who receives. By choosing to serve, we change our perspective, we expand our horizons, we deepen our gratitude, and that change reverberates into tomorrow. Because when we multiply service with preparation with commitment, what we produce is not just outcomes, but stories of human dignity, of connection, of progress. And so, as I turn toward the future, I do so with humility and determination. Humility because I recognize that I do not do this alone. Determination because I believe that our collective efforts make a difference. The axis of